Okay, so I just made this song that I thought, it sounded pretty good, so I just thought I'd show you how I made it real quick. And so basically, I started off with these chords. It's a fancy ARP in Citrus, and I started off with these chords. These are all chords based around 9, so these are 9 chords, or E9. And what I did is I came through here to helper, scale highlighting, major, and then E, and this helps you kind of stay organized, helps you stay in your key. It always helps to know all your scales. If you're really serious about producing and stuff, learn all your scales. It makes everything 1,000 times easier. So what I did is I start off with these major 9 chords. They're not all major 9. I mean, they're not all major chords, but what I did is I wanted to keep something consistent with all of these chords that it gave the ear something repetitive, but also it varies along. So I kept the same root note, but I did what's called inversions of different chords that are in the scale to give it more of a, more of something to listen to. So except for the occasional here, and then I go up to the next degree of the scale here, and then go up one more down here at the end. But it's very, very interesting to listen to, but it also has some tension in there. That it's called tension and release with chords that it makes the ear say, hey, that's wrong, but it's tension release, so it makes it sound good. It's more interesting to listen to. So the chords sound like this. So the sound didn't originally sound like this. What I did is, if I still listen to it before I mixed it. So you see, that's the original sound. See, that sounds terrible. I don't like that at all. So what I did is I came into here, and I put an EQ on it, and I cut out these highs that it was kind of hurting my ears. It sounded really muddy, and same thing with the lows. It just sounded really muddy. It just didn't really sound good. But there was this frequency that was resonating, and that I just really, it did not sound good at all. So what I did is if you scroll up, and you pull it up, and you sweep across to find the frequencies you don't want. So if I'm listening to it, you can listen and see that, hey, I can hear frequencies, more. The prime example right here. But I found a frequency that I didn't like, that doesn't sound good. You trust me, you will know if it doesn't sound good. And I just went through and I took it and I just pulled it all the way down. They just completely cut it out altogether. So that's a very, very useful tip. I do this for almost all my melodies, because it just cleans everything up. So then I added some reverb on it to get it sound like it's in a big space, and the reverb really added a lot to this. See, the reverb adds so much, and I just put a high cut and a low cut, and I turned up the decay, turned up the wetness, I widened it out, I separated it through the stereo separator. Left is more spread out, right is more straight down the center. If I turn it right, it's more straight down the center. This is more spread out. So I did that. And it sounds great. I like that. I add a compressor to it. It's not a huge difference, but trust me, it makes a difference. And I just added, it's a hardened compressor, so it detects. It's just sometimes I just go through and find what sounds better. So I turned down the threshold. I'm looking over here. The sound kind of cuts off around 20 dB. The lowest point is around 20 dB. So I took my threshold there, turned up my ratio to 3.8 to 1. I'm listening to see when I start to hear the effect, and then I pull it back when it gets too much, when I feel like it's too much. And then I turned up my attack, so it's not much of a, it's more controlled instead of just, you have to look up how compressors work. I don't have time to explain exactly how to use the compressor, but compressing is very, very important when you're creating tracks. And again, I widened it to the stereo separator right here. Left is wide, right is more mono, straight down the center. So then I added in this flute. Let me just go through a section where everything is playing right here. So then I added this flute in. I knew I wanted to sound, after hearing this, I was like, okay, I want a flute. And so I went and I found a flute. and I came up with this melody for the flute that sounded pretty good, and I liked it. I was very, very happy with it. But then again, I did the same process. So I cut out some lows, cut out some highs. I boosted up around 700 hertz to bring out some more frequencies that were not heard as much. And then again, I added reverb to it, same process. I turned down the decay actually in this, and I didn't want to add a low cut because I wanted to keep those high frequencies resonating with the reverb. So, and then I had a compressor, vintage compressor, turned my threshold down. I did a very, very, very high ratio, which is very, very compressed. Usually you don't want to use this high of a ratio, but I did just because I thought it sounded best. So then, I'm leveling my stuff as I go through. As you can see when I'm creating this, I'm leveling it out through these knobs right here. Left this way. I'm rotating it this way, that's to turn it down. Rotate this way to turn it up. So then I added in my claps, my kicks, my snares, and my 808s. But one thing I really like to do when I make my melodies is I always play my stuff in via MIDI keyboard. But if you don't, you just click it in. This is velocities. You don't want it to sound super linear, so mess around with your velocities to make it sound more, like humanized. You don't want it to sound so robotic. So I added in all my percussion. When I got to the hi-hats are actually very interesting. Again, I added one of my runs. I listened to what I want to hear. I added in these little hi-hat rolls, but I pitched them up a semitone and down semitone. Left two of these the same, but I also messed with the velocities to make them louder and softer and make them sound more interesting, so your ear doesn't really get tired of it. So then I added in an 808, a shaker to keep more movement in it, but I only have the shaker in certain parts because sometimes it can get too chaotic if I leave it in for so long. And I added a cymbal to fill up that empty space, a snare, and then that's just a producer tag. But basically, this is a very, very simple song, very simple process. It's just about trial and error. In this song, I had a lot of trial and error, especially the percussion elements of the song. So, it's just, it's a creative process. When it came to the arranging of the song, it was a lot. I usually do mine verse chorus, structure mine verse chorus, but I tried to switch it up a little bit. So I did an intro, I did a 3, I did a, I'm just going to refer to these as sections. So I did because each of my melody sections, they're all the same. Because if you look through my chord, it's just the same length as my flute, it's the same length as my 808, and so on. So I did a 3-section intro with my chords, and then I added in my little kick, like a little bit of like a bridge to like a 1-section bridge to a 2-section kind of verse to a chorus without the flute. And I added the flute in right there in the last section. And then I have a verse, 3-section verse, another 3-section verse, and then I have a chorus, 2-section chorus, and then I have let's get rid of all this. And then I have a 1-section bridge, 4-section verse, and then I have a little bit of a 2-section bridge right here, 2-section bridge, 2-section chorus, and then an outro. And what I also did to switch it up and kind of keep it interesting throughout the song is I came here to my master track. I went down to parametric EQ, and I added a low pass filter to it by right clicking on the band and number 7, going to type low pass, and then I put a low pass filter on it. And what I did from there is I right clicked on this little knob. This is the mix level, so it keeps it how much of the sound is going through this versus how much is not. So I put a mix level. I created an automation clip, and I turn it up and down, so it kind of the low pass filter only lets the low frequencies go through, so it sounds more, all the lower frequencies like the kick and all that come through a lot more than the higher frequencies. So I was basically cutting out these higher frequencies just to kind of add like an effect to it, and it sounded pretty good. And I just vary it throughout the song, different sections where I feel like it sounded good. And that's basically it. I mean, it's not a hard song. It's not complicated by any means. Probably the most complicated part is the chords, which really isn't even that complicated as well. But it's all a creative process. Listen to your ear, and your ear will never lie to you. So that's the biggest thing I can stress. So I'll let you listen to the whole thing, and that'll be it.
Crispy beard again.
Alright, that's about it. So, thanks for watching. And, yep.